What's good, y'all? It's Gas, and I'm finally back with another tutorial, man. Today we got some chord progressions I'm gonna be putting y'all on, man. Just a little chord progression tutorial because y'all have been all up in the comments asking for that. So as per request, I got y'all with this chord progression tutorial. So let's get into it, man. Let's do it. So before we even get to the chord progression, I gotta put y'all on some sounds. Some of my favorite sounds to use in like these plug-in beat type of melodies where we're making a little chord progression. So I'm gonna put y'all on. So first things first, I'm gonna blow through these pretty quick, but obviously we got Purity. This is like the classic plug VST. Got First Impression, sounds like this. Got Vintage EP2. We got some of the Time EPs. Pretty Suitcase. Like these are all just great sounds for plug-in B beats, and then you even got some in like the Bell and Perk section and like the Guitar and Plug section. Like one of these that I really like using is like the Fruit Steel. That's pretty nice to layer. Next, X-Band, pretty slept on for these plug-in B melodies. This Mark II epiano is super nice, and there's a few other really nice sounds in here. Next, Zenology, and this slowly became like my favorite VST. I love using Zenology, especially for plug-in B beats, like this Chorus epiano. Super nice sounding. And then there's also like this one sound, it's like Fusion something. I think it's Fusion-tastic. I'm gonna put you on two more and then we're gonna get to the progressions, but XV5080 is a must for plug-in B. It's got so many nice epiano sounds. This MK80 EP, low-key my favorite. XV5080 and JV1080 have like pretty much the same sounds, but I like XV5080 a lot more because it has like a lot more diverse sound selection. Last but not least, FM Times. I really like this Dreamtime 2 preset. I'm pretty sure this is the exact preset that was used in Blood Always Thicker by Summrs and Goyard, but there's also some super nice other sounds in here. Crystal EP. End up using this one a good amount of time. I really like FM Times. It has some great sounds for plug-in B. And a lot of y'all are sleeping, but FL has some fire stock sounds for plug-in B. Like for example, if you go here into packs, instruments, keyboard, they got a Rhodes plugin here that has some nice Rhodes sounds. And then even this electric piano plugin has some nice sounds, man. Now finally onto the chord progression. Now I want to like have some super basic stuff to help the people who are really beginners, and then also some super advanced stuff that's like towards the end of the video probably. So y'all stick around, but we gonna start off simple. So something I want to stress is there's no like specific really key that you should start on. Like I wouldn't recommend starting super high up or super low down, but like somewhere in the middle, like the 5, 6, 4s. So real quick, to make a simple chord, just from this G note you could go down 1, 2, 3, 4, put that there, and then go down from this note another 1, 2, 3 right there, and then you have a little minor triad. And to make this a major chord, all you gotta do is take this middle note, move it up 1, and then it's a major triad. If you're going for a more sad vibe, you're definitely gonna want to use some minor chords, but major chords are really good for like joyful, I guess, like happy vibe. And if we want to add on, we just keep doing our little intervals of 3 and 2 in between the notes. So keep alternating. So we'll go 3 between these two notes, and then 2 between the next two, and then this is a 9th chord. So now that's going to sound a lot more full. And if we want to do the same thing with a major chord, then we can just do the same thing with our 2 and 3 intervals, but just like switch them around. So then it's going to sound like this. Sounding a lot more happy. And to make the next chord, there's a whole lot of tricks you could use. One that I used to do all the time was you could just drag it over and then put it down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones, and it'll always sound good. So if you put it down 5 semitones, it'll always be on key, and on top of that you could put it down another 2 for a total of 7 semitones, and it'll also all be in key. And usually these chord progressions will have a little bit of bounce to them, especially in these plug-in B beats. So what you want to do is usually like 3 of these spaces will be a good length for the first chord, or really any chord, or you could stretch it out to be 5 of these spaces, if y'all see what I'm trying to say. So if I was to have this first chord play out for like 5 of these spaces, then we're gonna want our second chord to have 3 of these spaces filled up, and then we'll just do the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then now this will have a little more bounce to it. And I forgot to mention, y'all can do the same thing going up. Like you could go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or up 7, and it'll also still be in the same scale. And you don't want your chords sounding super robotic and like you made them in FL Studio. You want them sounding like they're actually played out. So something to help with that, you can hold down Alt and S at the same time, and then you'll be able to strum the notes so they sound more like they're played and less robotic. And you can actually make some really nice melodies with these just playing with the strummizer. And another thing you can do is you can randomize the velocities by holding down Alt and R at the same time, and then you can mess with the panning of the notes, also mess with the velocities and things like that. So now that we have our basics covered, I want to go into something a little more complex. Eventually, after making these melodies and chord progressions for a while, you'll be able to sort of detect by ear like what's in key and what's out. So that's when you can start clicking around and sort of making your own chords, like abstractly almost. Let's say I start at this E note, then I can keep clicking around and see what sounds good. So as you can see, this chord doesn't really match up with what I was just talking about, and that's just because through the process of trial and error, seeing what sounded good and then deleting what didn't, just came up with a nice little 9th chord here. And another thing to keep your chords interesting is you can invert notes, and basically what that means is just moving them up or down an octave. So if I was to take this A note, pitch it up an octave, gives the chord an entirely new feel. Same thing if I was to pitch this C sharp down an octave. And the 5 and 7 rule still applies with singular notes. So let's say I take the C sharp note and I put it up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still sounds nice. And now I'm about to really put y'all on some sauce. So something I really like doing in my plug-in B chord progressions is adding diminished chords. And basically to make a diminished chord, you need at least one note to be out of the scale. But it'll still sound good, if that makes any sense. Let me show y'all. So for example, let's say since we see this D and this C sharp are in the scale, this C note definitely isn't. So I just clicked around and found some notes that sounded good with the chord, but what's important to keep in mind is that this C note is out of the scale. This E, D, C sharp, all in the same scale, but the C note is out of the scale. So here I made a diminished chord by taking the C note that's out of the scale and then having these 4, which are actually in the scale, play along with it, and it sounds like this. And you can get some really cool sounding chords playing around with just making diminished chords like this. And that's really the whole of it. So I'm gonna make a chord progression right now from scratch for y'all, and then we're gonna make a little melody out of it so y'all can see how everything applies. So I just did the first 4 bars of this little chord progression, so I'm gonna break it down for y'all real quick. So first things first, with this first chord, all I did was just put stuff down that was in the scale, stuff that sounded good to me, and the chord ended up sounding like this. Nice little 9th chord, and then I brought that next note down because I just thought the top note needed to go down from an A to a G. That's just what was happening in my head. And if you're ever struggling to find the next note in your chord, all you gotta do, I did it in this chord, just like I keep saying, down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semitones, and there's your next note. Start of the 3rd bar, I got an entirely new chord here, just keep going down, and then I brought it back up to a G here, and I left out a note just because I thought it sounded nice. You don't have to force yourself to put as many notes as there was in the last chord into your next one. I want to make that very clear because I used to do that, and then my chord progression would be sounding way too crowded, and like it just wouldn't sound good in the mix. So really just whatever sounds good. I want to stress that the most. Whatever sounds good, keep. And then I had the bass notes descending from an F to an E to a D. just because that was in the scale and I thought it sounded nice. And then I just filled in everything else just by clicking around, seeing what sounded good. And then right here you can see I sort of have like a little sliding note. I just thought it sounded nice. It was what I was hearing in the melody. So as you guys can see, a lot of this just comes through trusting your ear and just gaining that ear through time. So all in all, this is how the 4 bar sounds. I forgot to mention, this right here is a diminished chord. You can see the C sharp isn't in the scale. This D, this C, and this B note are all in the scale, but the C sharp is not. So I just put some notes around it that sounded good and ended up coming out like this. And now to make it sound more realistic, I'm gonna randomize these velocities and strum everything just a little bit. And now it'll sound like this. So for the second half, all I did was copied literally everything over. I didn't change anything with the chords. All I did was add some filler notes. So you can see there's a little bit of a top line. So I just heard some notes in the melody that would have sounded nice. So again, I just clicked and kept what sounded good, deleted what didn't, and I came up with this. So I'm done with the chord progression now. I think I'm gonna add a lead. So now I just layered the chord progression. I just copy and pasted the same exact thing that I had in the original sound. I got this grand octave soft pad out of X-Band, and then this fruit nylon sound out of Purity, and just layered them on top. And now the melody's a whole lot more full, and it sounds like this. Now I think I'm gonna add a bell. I ain't even intend on making this a full-on beat. I just wanted to show y'all how to make a little chord progression, but hey, I ended up making a beat. So I hope y'all enjoyed. Hope y'all learned something. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, man. Helps out the channel a ton. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. We're so close to 800, on the way to 1K. I'm gonna definitely be uploading a lot more, and y'all have been showing so much love, so I appreciate the hell out of y'all. But hey, if y'all got any questions or any recommendations for any tutorials I should do in the future, please leave them in the comments. I'm more than happy to do whatever. But hey, this has been Gas, man. I love y'all, and I'll see y'all. Peace.